Colleagues, I just want to get this meeting started with the Subcommittee for Health and Human Services. Today we had 3 readouts, one from the Office of Deaf and Hard of Hearing, the second from the State Department of Assessments and Taxation, and the third from the Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board. At this moment, we are going to do the State Department of Assessments and Taxation, and we're going to ask Mr. David Propert to give us the readout.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Beginning on page 1, the fiscal 2027 budget for the State Department of Assessments and Taxation, or SDAT, decreases by 2.5% to $185.2 million. This decrease is due to proposed deficiencies in fiscal 2026, totaling a net value of about $15 million, which will be discussed more later. You will also notice that special funds have comprised an increasing share of the agency's total budget each fiscal year shown. This is due to 2 actions from the BRFA of 2025. First, the local and state cost share for 3 of SDAT's programs switched from being 50-50 to 90-10. And secondly, up to $11 million in special funds from the Expedited Service Fund were allowed to be used for general operating expenses in fiscal 2026 and 2027. Moving to page 5, Exhibit 1. In blue, the percentage of personal property returns assessed by October 31st has improved each year since fiscal 2021. In orange, the percentage of the local assessable base assessed by October 31st reversed a historical trend in year-over-year declines in fiscal 2025 by improving to 73% from 49% in fiscal 2024. SDAT should comment on the reasons for the improvement in the percentage of the local assessable base assessed by October 31st. Continuing to Exhibit 2 on page 6, the residential assessment to sales ratio remained level at 92% in fiscal 2025, and fiscal 2025 saw the largest year-over-year growth in the value of the assessable base in the period shown, increasing by 6.7% to just over $1 trillion. Exhibit 3 on page 7 shows the corresponding increase in property taxes collected by local jurisdictions as property values have risen. From fiscal 2019 to 2025, property tax revenues increased by about 35%, or $3 billion. Exhibit 4 on page 8 shows that the number of eligible homeowners tax credit, or HTC, applicants has decreased each fiscal year except for fiscal 2024, and eligible HTC applicants decreased year over year in fiscal 2025 by 10.7%. Contrary to the HTC, the number of eligible applicants for the renter's tax credit, or RTC, increased by 37.8% year over year in fiscal 2025. SDAT should discuss the factors that led to the increase in eligible RTC applications in fiscal 2025. Exhibit 5 on page 9 shows HTC utilization, including deficiencies. In 3 out of the last 4 fiscal years, deficiencies have been needed to fund this program at the required level, including a $16.2 million deficiency in fiscal 2025. The agency reported that fiscal 2024 and 25 contained outstanding payments that were due to delays in receiving documentation from local jurisdictions. The fiscal 2027 allowance includes a $7 million deficiency for fiscal 2026, and SDAT reports that this is entirely for Baltimore County credits owed based on applications from fiscal 2023 and 2025. SDAT should comment on how the HTC is forecasted for future years. The agency should also discuss what can be done to improve this process to avoid future payment backlogs. Exhibit 6 on page 10 displays RTC utilization. There was a year-over-year increase of 63%, or $1.7 million in fiscal 2024, despite a reduction in the number of eligible applicants. SDAT reports that this fiscal 2024 increase was due to the accumulation of payments stemming from prior fiscal years that were also delayed because local jurisdictions were late to send the required documentation. SDAT should comment on how many RTC applications are in the backlog due to a lack of requisite documentation from local jurisdictions. Moving to Exhibit 7 on page 11, the number of new participants in the Enterprise Zone Tax Credit Program peaked at 85 in fiscal 2021 and has declined in each fiscal year since. The number of total participants grew 27% from fiscal 2019 to 2025, and the amount reimbursed to local governments increased 21% during that time frame. Although the total number of participants steadily increased from fiscal 2020 onward, the payments to local jurisdictions did not increase at the same rate and even decreased from fiscal 2022 to 2023, despite additional participants. And this can occur for several reasons. First, the timing cycle of each participant varies due to the fact that the credit diminishes over time. Additionally, the property tax credit is based on the portion of real property improvements made. There can be years when the number of participants increases, but the value of improvements is less than a year with fewer participants. From fiscal 2024 to 2025, there was one less participant and reimbursements increased by $800,000. Page 12 lists proposed deficiencies for fiscal 2026, totaling $15.9 million, which are partially offset by a reduction of approximately $733,000. Notable deficiencies include $7 million for the HTC program, $4.2 million for the Enterprise Zone Tax Credit Program, and $3.7 million to refund local jurisdictions for overcharging their portion of the cost share for certain SDAT programs from fiscal 2014 to 2025. Exhibit 8 on page 13 shows the overview of agency spending. The tax credit programs comprise the majority, followed by the property valuation program at 30%. Exhibit 9 on page 14 breaks down the cost for the tax credit programs, and the majority is for the HTC, while about 1/3 is for the RTC. Exhibit 10 on page 15 shows the changes from the fiscal 2026 working appropriation to the allowance. Major changes include $4 million for salary increases in fringe benefits and $2.9 million for health insurance, which are offset by year-over-year decreases in major IT projects and the various deficiencies described previously. Flipping to page 16, SDAT had a vacancy rate of 5.62%, or 32 positions, as of December 31st, 2025. In October of 2025, the Board of Public Works approved the abolition of 502.7 positions statewide, including 170.7 vacant positions and 332 positions associated with the voluntary separation program. As part of these actions, 7 positions were abolished in SDAT, including 3 vacant positions and 4 positions as part of the voluntary separation program. Of SDAT's 32 vacant positions, 2 have been vacant for more than 1 year. The Department of Legislative Services recommends deleting one of these long-term vacant positions. Language in the fiscal 2026 budget bill restricted $25,000 in general funds pending a report on the status of 5 positions that were vacant for more than 1 year as of December 31st, 2024. Among these 5 positions, all were filled as of August 8th, 2025. Upon review, DLS determined the report to be in compliance with the budget language and therefore recommends that the $25,000 in withheld funds be released, and we will process a letter to that effect if no objections are raised by the committees. Moving to Exhibit 11 on page 19, narrative in the 2025 Joint Chairman's Report requested that SDAT submit 2 reports on the status of vacancies in its real property valuation program. Salary increases for this program were provided in the fiscal 2025 budget and took effect in July 2024. Vacancies initially dropped from the historical level beginning in August of 2024 and continued to July of 2025 before creeping back up to historical levels in October 2025. Following October, they decreased to slightly below historical levels. Continuing on to page 20, the Office of Legislative Audits, or OLA, investigated a tip of misuse of SDAT's Corporate Purchasing Card, or CPC, program by one employee and conducted an audit covering the period from May 2019 through August 2024. SDAT was unable to provide documentation, such as itemized receipts, to support the cardholder's payments for at least 230 payments totaling $41,400, and 16 payments totaling $1,400 had illegible documentation. Among others, OLA identified other instances of misuse, including the CPC being used for extra days in a rental property for a conference, personal utility and phone bills, and other personal items. SDAT did identify $300 in questionable purchases from the reported employee and terminated their employment in August of 2024. However, they did not process the termination as a termination with prejudice as indicated in the termination letter, which meant that the cardholder was eligible to be rehired by another state agency. Furthermore, the matter was not referred to the Office of the Attorney General, Criminal Division, and the Governor's Chief Counsel as required. The agency also could not document that it attempted to recover the improper payments identified. OLA recommended that corrective actions be taken, including ensuring terminations are accurately processed and future instances of criminal or unethical conduct are subjected to the proper reporting requirements. Additionally, OLA recommended that SDAT abide by the Comptroller's regulations for CPC programs and enhanced approval oversight of purchases. The agency agreed with the findings and the corrective measures. Exhibit 12 on page 22 displays the timeline for one of SSTAT's major IT projects known as the Cloud Revenue Integrated System, or CRIS. CRIS essentially modernizes the tax credit application and administration process and the Maryland Business Entity System, which is a state database that contains important tax and legal information and documentation for businesses by moving processes online instead of being paper-based. Language in the fiscal 2026 budget bill restricted $50,000 of general funds pending the submission of 2 reports on the development and status of CRIS. Parts 1 through 7, which comprise the RTC, HTC, Homestead Tax Credit, and Homeowner Protection Program, have been successfully developed and deployed. Part 8 is in progress, and Parts 9 and 10 are in the procurement process. Upon review, DLS determined the reports to be in compliance with the budget language and therefore recommends that the $50,000 in withheld funds will be released, and we will process a letter to that effect if no objections are raised by the committees. The primary source of funding for SSTAT's major IT projects is the Expedited Service Fund, which receives deposits from expedited processing fees that businesses can elect to use for various filings. Including the appropriation and the fiscal 2027 allowance, total budgeted funding for IT projects currently exceeds the maximum estimated total cost of the project by $7.1 million, as reported in the IT project appendix that accompanied the fiscal 2027 allowance. SSTAT reports that there have been unspent special funds that were canceled and then reappropriated in later fiscal years, and the reappropriation of these unused special funds caused them to be double counted. The agency has stated that the total estimated project cost is $39.6 million, not the $47.1 million listed in the Information Technology Project Appendix. The agency should provide the estimated fiscal 2026 closing balance for the Expedited Service Fund. Additionally, the agency should also work with the Department of Budget and Management and the Department of Information Technology to update the IT project appendix submission in future years to account for canceled funds. DLS recommends adding language restricting funds in the fiscal 2027 budget for the purpose of administration until SSTAT submits a report updating the committees on the status of the CRIS project. Lastly, SSTAT's other major IT project is the Maryland Assessment Administration Evaluation System, which will be a computer-assisted mass appraisal system. In fiscal 2025, $1.95 million was appropriated for this project, but none of it was spent, so the funds were canceled. In fiscal 2026, $4.9 million was appropriated, and only $1.95 million, which is the amount of funding from fiscal 2025, is planned to be spent. The agency has previously reported that this project has been delayed due to a technical writer not being hired to draft a request for proposal. SSTAT should discuss whether a technical writer has been hired and the new timeline for the project. And with that, I conclude the presentation and can take any questions.
Senator Augustine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was curious on the page 10, you talked about the fact that they had not reported it, or some, I'm not getting my words right here, but there was a delay in that.
So when SSTAT administers its tax credit, there's several forms. They could be a little more specific than I can, but there's several forms they have to receive from the local jurisdictions, like from the county or Baltimore City, to verify that the person is eligible, and they've had difficulties getting these forms from the counties in a timely manner. Okay,
good. That's helpful. So I'll ask them a question about that. And then the other one, Mr. Chair, just forgive me, on Exhibit 9, did I mishear? Because it says that the enterprise zone is the 33%. I might have misheard you said that the renter's tax credit was that on the exhibit?
I could have misspoke.
So it is.
Yeah, it should be labeled correctly.
It's labeled correctly here?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it is the enterprise zone is the part that's yeah. And then finally, forgive me, Mr. Chair, on Exhibit 12, you've got the 3 through to deployment, and I just didn't necessarily hear about that final transfer step. Is that something that I should ask them, or is that just not?
I think I can answer. So the final transfer, that's when SSTAT's IT office assumes full responsibility for the maintenance and operation of the software, basically.
Okay. So there's no timeline estimate, anything on that? I'll ask them.
They can.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. That's helpful. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, if we can call up Director Yeager.
morning, Chair McCray. Members of the subcommittee, my name is Bob Yeager, and I'm honored to serve as Director of the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to share what we're doing at SDAT, discuss our fiscal 27 budget, and to answer your questions. First, I'd like to introduce you to our team. I'm joined today by our State Supervisor of Assessments, Adam Lewis, Associate Director Maria Mathias, Chief Financial Officer Aubrey Buscombe, and Director of Human Resources Keith Mervin, as well as our Government Affairs Director Josh Greenberg. With my appointment by Governor Moore last summer, I come to this role with a deep respect for the agency's responsibilities and for the partnership between SDAT and the General Assembly, especially given SDAT's central role in property assessments, tax credits, and business services that directly affect Maryland's businesses and residents, as well as its economy and local government revenues. My goal is to lead the transformation of SDAT into a modern, innovative, and customer-focused agency that leads in service delivery and operational excellence, supports our incredible team of professionals, and exceeds expectations when fulfilling the goals of lawmakers who create the programs we administer, all while exercising fiscal responsibility. SDAT is currently undergoing key modernization projects to systems across all agency divisions. We're enhancing community outreach, strengthening partnerships with local governments, industry groups, and advocates, and managing targeted initiatives to improve our services, all while tailoring our strategies to maximize our budget efficiency. Here are just some of the progress we've made in the last year. We've doubled our outreach to residents and businesses across the tax credits, tax sale ombudsman, and business services divisions to bridge information gaps and assist at-risk residents with plans to ramp this up further in 2026. The department has worked closely with local governments, advocacy organizations, and other external stakeholders to make targeted, customer-focused improvements to our services, including working to make our online resources available to non-English speaking residents and our ongoing efforts to translate forms into more languages. This collaboration, in addition to the feedback we get firsthand from working directly with our customers every day, has been the basis of targeted and successful projects, such as our recently launched vacant lot valuation initiative in Baltimore City. We're entering phase 2 of our exciting transition of our business filing system away from the Annapolis data center to a modern cloud-based platform. This project will enable us to dramatically improve our services to Maryland business owners and entrepreneurs. We've successfully implemented new laws, which include creating an enhanced phone outreach program for homeowners in tax sale, and enrolling heirs to deceased property owners into critical tax credit programs and our homeowner protection program. And finally, we've implemented extensive cross-training to reduce processing times in our tax credits and business charter divisions. And there's much more to come this year. With each goal, we've strived to minimize costs and optimize existing resources. With that, I'd like to thank our budget analyst, David Proppert, for collaborating with us to provide this year's analysis. We highly value the insights and feedback on how we can improve what we do. The committee has our written responses to the DLS analysis, and now I can go through each of our responses, if that sounds good to you, Mr. Chair, or I can answer any questions. Okay. So the first one about improvement in assessable base percentage. We've reversed a year-over-year decline by improving the percentage of the local assessable base assessed by October 31st from 73% in fiscal 25 up from 49% in fiscal 24. This was achieved by distributing business personal property assessor assignments in April, which is much earlier than the previous May timeframe, and by cross-training our utility and railroad assessors to assist with the business personal property assessments. We saw a 75%, we also saw a 75% adoption rate for online filings, supported by a vigorous marketing campaign by our vendor, Tyler Technologies. The second response was there was a surge in renters tax credit applications. So the surge in the 2025 applications was fueled by a multi-channel awareness strategy involving state and local resources. SDAT mailed over 100,000 postcards to potential applicants, while local partners like Baltimore City and Howard and Montgomery County governments intensified local communications and assistance. The third response, the homeowners tax credit forecasts and deficiencies. We project future demand for these credits by integrating our 3-year triennial reassessment cycle data with economic indicators like property growth rates and household income trends. The $7.6 million in outstanding disbursements for fiscal 23 and fiscal 25 resulted entirely from local taxing authorities failing to submit required certification reports. we are implementing an automated smart reminder system to trigger alerts for missing documentation and are exploring a real-time tracking dashboard for county officials. The fourth was the renter's tax credit backlog status. There are currently no renter's tax credit applications in the backlog. Previous delays were attributed to documentation from local jurisdictions, but upon further review, all eligible applications have now been processed. Fifth, expedited service fund balance. Projections, we expect to close fiscal 26 with a fund balance of approximately $14.6 million, down from $32.4 million at the end of fiscal 25. This decrease is primarily driven by essential spending on major IT development projects and the legislative fund swap. Sixth, MITDP appendix updates. SDAT will collaborate closely with the Department of Budget and Management and the Department of Information Technology to ensure that future MITDP appendix submissions accurately reflect any canceled funds. Seven, technical writer and the MAVES timeline. Securing a technical writer is a top priority, and we are currently interviewing candidates this week and will submit our top choice to the vendor immediately. The MAVES project is on a clear track with procurement in 26-27, implementation from 28 to 2030, and moving to operations and maintenance in 2030. As far as the two recommended actions, the long-term vacant position, SDAT respectfully disagrees with the DLS recommendation to delete a long-term vacant budget specialist position. We instead intend to reclassify this as an accountant 2 position funded through the special fund to assist in reconciling and tracking our $363 million in annual revenue. This role is critical for ensuring county reimbursement payments are processed timely and reducing the risk of billing errors. The language restricting the funds pending the report on Chris, SDAT concurs with this recommendation. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Senator Augustine.
Button. You know I'm asking questions, don't you? I like that. Yes, sir. You all heard what I asked. Can you just answer for me the question about the time lag of that's allowed for those who haven't, for the locals who haven't submitted their correct paperwork?
Right. So the once the county, once we issue the calculations for tax credits that a property owner is going to receive, the county applies that to the property owner's account. Then they submit certification back to us for the reimbursement, and then we pay that out to them. We can't send that money to them basically until we get that certification. And one county has had difficulty getting us that certification, so that requires us to, we have the money set aside to pay them, but we have to hold on to it. And if, as years go by, you know, there's an instinct to roll the money back. Or I guess the money becomes, we have to always argue for why the money needs to stay available in case they do get that documentation to us. So what we've done is, in this, because it was only one county, we just made a lot of individual efforts to get that information. And that county was updating their IT systems, and they had challenges running those reports. But what we are also putting in place is a systematic approach so that we can alert any counties that are behind in submitting that documentation to us, so that they are aware as soon as possible that we need to get that documentation with regular reminders and ways to escalate that in a more systematic approach, so that counties are aware of this and it stays on their radar. I think that's what happens sometimes, is that if we didn't continue reminding them, that it would sort of not be a top priority.
Understood, but the program does not have a backstop on it at any point. Like, so the liability remains, basically. I mean, that's what I'm hearing when you say there's not. We don't have anything in there that says, you know,
that they would lose the money if they don't.
Correct.
Okay, we do not.
Okay, I'm just asking questions.
Right.
All right. So that's helpful for me to understand. And did I hear? No, this is a different program. You were talking about MAVES. You heard what I asked a question about the Chris and this final transfer. What is? It just has no estimate here. What is that?
Right. So the final transfer is June 30th. At the end of June, that's the final phase of the development, and then from July 1st to June 30th for fiscal '27, that is our maintenance and operation period where we have the system completely handed off to us, but there's maintenance and operation updates that are available through the vendor. So that's where we are with that process.
So, okay, was that communicated to DLS, or I'm just trying to understand why it's just here red here? Is that, it says no estimate on the final transfer on the CRIS one stop, and it's exhibit number 12.
Right.
And then it also shows where you've got some steps that aren't quite ready yet, which is fine, I understand that. Like, you know, for steps 9 and step 10, part 9, part 10. Maybe you don't have what I have.
I have it right here, page 22.
Yeah.
23, Kristen. No, sir. Okay, so, the CRIS one stop, so it's got those two parts. The first part is the tax credits underlying system. That program is the infrastructure that underlies our tax credits and the homeowner protection program. That process is in its final phase of development, and that will be completed at the end of June. The MBIS project is at a different phase where that is the conversion of our business filing system away from the Annapolis data center to a cloud-based system. We had an RFP this summer, and the way this works was we had 3 proof of concepts by our selected top 3 candidates. That process has just been completed. We've reviewed those 3 proof of concepts, and we are in the process of looking at the financials for that, and then we'll select one of those contractors to complete the project, and that's a 2-year project to convert the process over. So basically, the 3 proof of concepts were a way for us to get a sample of those vendors' work on this project. And then we saw how the functionality was, and working with that team, that we choose the one that works best for us, and then they would complete the conversion project. So that would be completed in 2 years. And I apologize if that's not clear in this chart. Right, so if you look at on page 23, the CRIS Part 8, the tax credit.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that part. That part was clear. I was just, when I see red, I want to know what that is. There's a lot of red here.
Okay.
And I still haven't heard necessarily, like, what you're saying is that it's not red, that you all will take over full responsibility. As I read the note, it says that the final transfer means that you all will take over, that's when you will assume full responsibility for maintaining the new system. That is what is red here. Okay. You are ready to take over the new system come June?
At the end of June.
July 1, basically?
Yes.
So that is planning to happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All
yes,
right.
Senator.
This doesn't indicate that. Mr. Chair, one more last question I have for y'all. These credits that we have, just for my education and edification, there are those who are eligible and those who access the credits. Can you just share with me the big picture for the big buckets of eligible versus those who actually are accessing these credits?
Sure. So we have various outreach methods to try to make people aware of the homeowner's property tax credit. When we receive about 75,000 applications each year, about 40,000 of those are eligible for the credit. In terms of people who are not applying for the credit who may be eligible, we have a multi-pronged strategy for how we're trying to reach those groups. We have our tax sale ombudsman's office where we reach out to anyone who's on the list who's struggling to pay their property taxes. So we make phone calls, we send them applications. We also have, we work with community groups, nonprofits in each county to get information out to property owners who may be eligible for this program. We also have data that we cross-reference with the comptroller's office, and we send out postcards each year for groups that are likely to be eligible for those credits. And we are also looking to, this year, we're looking to work with lawmakers in their constituents, their newsletters that they send out to expand that awareness to people of this available credit. The eligibility has declined over the years in that one chart that we showed because as people's income increases, more and more people are ineligible because of the $60,000 annual combined household income cap for that credit. So that is something that we're talking with lawmakers about how we might, adjust the eligibility requirements for this to make it more available. But we are currently, our main focus is on people who may already be eligible and meet those income thresholds, but are not taking advantage of that credit. So it is a challenge.
Basically, that was my question. I'm not trying to, but the question that I'm asking is, what is that universe, right? I mean, I understand all that you just said, but and you don't have to answer it now. I'm asking for you to help me to better understand the scope of what is possible, sort of like, what we believe to be possible versus that which we have reached versus those that we know that are accessing these, and not just for each of your big buckets. So like not just for the HTC, but for each of the buckets, just from to better understand. I know in my community, for example, which we do have a significant fixed income group, that one of my previous colleagues would go around to our neighbors' homes, and you would find many of them that were not taking advantage of it. This is a part of the scoping that I'm asking about, but then there's an impact too, potentially, if we were to have, a higher level of utilization on these credits. That's what I'm asking for, if it's possible.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. I'll ask my questions pretty quick, but also please give very quick responses. How's the mail in area going? Are we headed in the right direction? I believe I heard that we are, but just want to be clear.
Absolutely, we're in the right direction. We have we work with the league, and we're on track. We didn't have any experiences, any problems this year, and we're continuing to work with them to see about how we can even improve that process more. We're also exploring the possibility of maybe legislation that would allow people to elect to receive their notifications via email, and that would satisfy the notice requirement.
With the HTCs, you weren't super clear. What's the average amount of days that they're coming in late?
The delays in the application?
Yeah.
In terms of the application processing, it's about a 90-day turnaround time for processing applications. Often they're faster than that, but the problem comes when there's something missing. We might review the application, it's sent back. We need income documentation. We need some sort of, they've left blanks on the application. And that we've tried to connect more with, have more communications with people to remind them that they need to supply that additional information. I think in the past it was, sort of the ball was in their court to provide that additional information. If they didn't, then we wouldn't have any follow-up. But now we're following up to give reminders, say we still need this information to determine your eligibility.
Yep, I'm talking about the average delays in reference to the local jurisdiction, getting you back to information around the deficiencies.
In terms of the turnaround time on when we get the documentation normally, do you know, Aubrey, when we get those certifications back from the counties for the reimbursement for the homeowners tax credits, it usually doesn't go beyond one fiscal year.
Is it 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? How long is it taking you guys to get it back?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay, please. The second one is in reference to who's the worst offenders. You never really spoke to the jurisdictions. Who's the top three that's slowing this process down the way we keep having these deficiencies come in?
The only two deficiencies we have are with Baltimore County. And what they've explained to us is that they've had a new IT system they've been putting in place, and it was difficult to run the reports and provide additional documentation. In fiscal 23, that was 2.4 million, and then in fiscal 25, it was 5.2 million, and that represents the entirety of the deficiencies. All the other counties have supplied the information.
Okay, perfect. And when you're communicating, who are you communicating to? Are you communicating with the county executive? Are you with the local finance director? Who?
Yes, everyone there.
With this IT challenge, do you feel confident as the director that for us to be successful to not keep going through these deficiencies, things are in place at this moment with the local jurisdiction?
I think for us, we have a system where for our IT systems that transmit those calculations, I feel confident that with the system that we have. It's really just getting that documentation back. So we have, a new process where we'll increase our notifications to the counties. But in terms of the county's IT system, we don't have any update on where they are with that process.
That's where I was getting to.
Okay.
And you have no triggers to make sure that we don't go through, obviously we went through multiple deficiencies, but like FY27, we're not putting in a deficiency with that jurisdiction.
Right. No, we are not. And we don't have any trigger to say it's been too long and you lose access to those funds.
Got it. I'm gonna move to the next one. In reference to the Expedited Service Fund, what is the current balance? I know you gave a projected, but like what is on hand at this moment?
I'm right. At this point in time, for the record, Aubrey Bascom, Chief Financial Officer. At this point in time, it was 32.4. So the outflows this year, based on the working, is going to be over $33 million outflows, primarily driven by the fund swap that we mentioned before, which is up to $10 million. Then in working, we're looking at $13.3 million for the major IT projects. But based on the year to date, that may come in somewhere in the neighborhood of 7.2 to $9 million. So we anticipate that 14.6 may go up to 20. Currently, we're looking at around $30 million at the balance right now.
So inside the account right now is $30 million?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, but the outflows are going to be over $30-something million for the full year. And that's primarily driven by, we talked about the fund swap, which is $10 million. And then you also got looking at major IT projects right now that are projected based on the year of over $13 million, plus the cost to run the charter program itself, which is another $9 million. So that's how we got to that outflows of over $30-something million.
I got it. Director, just in reference to the analysis, in reference to your testimony, two numbers were given, the double count, the 32 million, and then the 14, which was projected. If you can kind of send the synopsis back to Mr. Probert, that would be helpful. That way we can kind of keep track of what's going on. In reference to what took place at Ocean City, do you feel as though as the director or your immediate support staff, like that you have the controls in place to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. That's all my questions. Yes, sir. What page was it on? There was an employee that was removed. It was referred to the AG. Yeah. Seeing no further questions and with no public testimony, we're going to end the hearing for the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. Colleagues, we are going to be cognizant that we wanted to bring up Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing first. So we're going to bring them up at this moment, and we're going to ask Connor Brown for the readout.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. My name is Connor Brown, Policy Analyst with the Department of Legislative Services, here to present the fiscal 2027 budget analysis for the Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, or ODHH. To begin, on page 1 of the analysis, the fiscal 2027 budget for ODHH increases by $69,116, or 6.1%, to $1.2 million. On page 2, Exhibit 1 shows an overview of agency spending in fiscal 2027. Approximately 76% of the budget supports personnel, funding 7 regular positions. The second largest portion, at 9%, is for American Sign Language interpretation services. These services support internal operations, public meetings, and town halls. Moving on to page 3, Exhibit 2 outlines line item changes in the fiscal 2027 allowance compared to fiscal 2026. The primary driver of the budget increase is personnel costs, which are increasing by just under $80,000. Additionally, sign language interpreter services increased by $35,000 due to implementation of the Maryland Sign Language Interpreters Act, which I will get to later. Helping offset increases is the elimination of a contractual executive assistant position. On page 4 is the personnel section. As of December 31st, 2025, ODHH had 4 vacant positions, some of which have never been filled. Regarding these vacancies, ODHH has indicated that they have been kept vacant due to delays in the implementation of the Sign Language Interpreters Act and the statewide hiring freeze. However, ODHH has stated that they intend to fill those positions by the end of the fiscal year. While ODHH plans for 3 of the vacant positions have remained consistent, plans for the 4th have changed over time. DLS recommends abolishing one of the vacant positions that has been vacant for more than 1 year. The key observations section begins on page 5 with the licensure and regulation of sign language interpreters, which was established by the Maryland Sign Language Interpreters Act. This bill required the State Board of Sign Language Interpreters within ODHH to establish and publish licensing requirements by July 1st, 2024. After requirements were not published by the required date, committee narrative in the 2025 Joint Chairman's Report requested a report from ODHH indicating they have published the requirements and explaining reasons for the delay. This report was submitted in June 2025 after ODHH submitted proposed licensing requirements for public comment. However, during public comment, ODHH indicates they received a high volume of comments expressing concern and confusion about the requirements, with many comments pertaining to the statute itself. ODHH announced in November 2025 that they were pausing development of the regulations, and the governor's office convened a working group to discuss the concerns and any potential changes to the Maryland Sign Language Interpreters Act. DLS recommends adopting committee narrative, requesting that ODHH submit 2 reports with updates on the development of state sign language interpreter licensing regulations. More details on this recommendation can be found in the recommended action section on page 7. At the bottom of page 5 and on page 6, the second key observation discusses key findings from the work group for the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing. These recommendations were submitted to the Governor and General Assembly in May 2025. In these recommendations, the work group recommended a new deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing unit to provide case management services and advocacy, as well as a deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing coalition of case managers that meet regularly to ensure that individuals in the community are being served and served by the appropriate agency. The work group terminates in June 2026, but has requested an extension to expand on charges of the work group that it believes have not been addressed completely. And with that, I conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Seeing no questions at this time, if we can bring up Director DeBerry.
Greetings, Chair, Vice Chair, as well as distinguished members of this committee. I'm Ursula DeBerry, Director for the Governor's Office of Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and it is my honor to be here on behalf of the office as its director. It is truly a privilege to work with the Moore-Miller administration to support the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing community in Maryland. I would like to thank our legislative analyst, Mr. Connor Brown, for all of his work with our office. I'm also very, very grateful for my hardworking team who is sitting beside me today, the wonderful Diamond Halliburton and Tanea Brown. This fiscal year has been focused on sustaining the open communication with the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing community, and the ASL interpreter community as well. We have achieved this through our town halls, meetings that have been held both with and without our advisory board. That advisory board is the Maryland Advisory Council on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. ODHH has also supported and facilitated the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing Maryland work groups and developing their recommendations. And I am also ready to respond on page 4, the personnel data. The Department of Legislative Services, or DLS, recommends abolishing one of those vacant positions, which has been vacant for more than 1 year. Our office's response is such. The Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, ODHH, respectfully disagrees with the recommendation to abolish one of the vacant positions. The deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing community is historically underrepresented and has faced long-standing barriers to access and inclusion. Reducing the staffing levels within ODHH would have a disproportionate impact on this community, and it would also undermine the agency's ability to effectively serve its constituents, which is our Marylanders. Due to the statewide hiring freeze, delays, and extensive public feedback, that feedback which was then related to the implementation of the Sign Language Interpreters Act, ODHH temporarily suspended our recruitment efforts. However, the agency considers these positions critical and intends to complete the recruitment by the end of fiscal year 2026, with all of the positions being filled at the start of fiscal year 2027. Additionally, for chapters 442 and 443 of 2024, which established the work group for the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing, or DBHH community, full staffing is essential for ODHH to properly implement and support this unit. Eliminating one of the vacant positions would significantly hinder the agency's ability to carry out this work and fulfill our broader statutory responsibilities. Again, it would be a severe hindrance to the office and our responsibilities. For these reasons, ODHH does not concur with the recommendation to abolish the vacant position. Moving on to page 5, the key observations. DLS recommends adopting the committee narrative, requesting that ODHH submit 2 reports with updates on the development of the state sign language interpreter licensing requirements, and the regulations. The ODHH office concurs with the recommended actions of providing updates on the sign language interpreter licensing requirements. Moving on to page 7, when it comes to our operating budget and the recommended actions, there are 2 things to respond to here. The first of which ODHH again respectfully disagrees with the recommendation of abolishing one of the vacant positions that has been vacant for more than 1 year. And secondly, ODHH concurs with the recommendation and the recommended action of providing updates on the sign language interpreter licensing requirements. Thank you, and I will open it up for any questions that you may have for me.
Just a couple questions, specifically around the vacancies. It's 57% of your workforce. I know you talk about communication, engagement, and things of that nature. Can you speak to the things that are not getting done when you do not have 50% of your agency?
Do you mind repeating that question? I was also looking at the captioner and the interpreter, and I just want to make sure I understand it.
Half your workforce is missing. What's not getting done with an agency?
Now, for our agency to continue operating during these vacancies, we have already distributed and we've been distributing the work amongst the 3 of us, essentially. And with our current staffing, that has actually caused significant delays with some of our initiatives that we have been working and operating with our reduced capacity. It has been restrictive in our ability. We want to be able to proactively increase our capacity for doing those things instead of being reactive in nature. And that has been a component that has been missing. And to be honest, it's not sustainable in the long term to continue with the restrictions and limitations that we are required to have when it comes to meeting the obligations under the statutory requirements. That would be continued to be impacted. And asking my staff, I see no other comments from them.
Specific timeline. So in your response, you said that the hiring would take place by the end of fiscal year 2026. So I'm going to say June 2026. So nobody out of those, you only got 7 positions. We're talking about 4 of them. Nobody's being hired February, March, April, and May.
You are correct. So basically, I have had several conversations, and we're ready to make offers with those individuals that we had interviewed, and then we were told to put that on pause. And that was, again, due to that statewide hiring freeze. We had to suspend those efforts for offering.
I'll leave it there. I'm going to move to the Sign Language Interpreter Act. My colleague, Senator King, takes this very, very serious, and just thinking about just some of the delays, I didn't see any specific dates in there. When will this come to fruition, implementation? What's the earliest date that we can kind of see this? We've been dealing with it for years at this moment.
With the new amendment, I believe that will help see some movement happen with this. The committee the community submitted public comments, and we received over 200 public comments when we put our regulations up for that period. We established a workings group under the governor's office for the focus on the SBSLI efforts and to support that board. Senator King, as well as delegates, have been very helpful with the new amendment. And I want to say that that amendment is focused on 2 things, specifically expanding the board and finding the right balance of the constituent and complementing members, and then also looking at the alternative pathways so that we are not restricted and stuck with only certification being the option for obtaining licensure. We understand that there is a shortage and paucity of interpreters available, and when it comes to licensure, we don't want that to be overly restrictive. And we believe that the amendment with the bill that will be heard will see those efforts come to fruition. And I want to thank you for the work that's been done on that.
Thank you. One last question, and then I'm gonna move to my colleague. 76% of your budget is personnel. Four out of the 7 vacant positions for over a year. Can you help me understand what services have been enhanced due to the personnel not being there?
Now, we do continue operating even with our vacant positions. We have continued to maintain the obligations that we have under the law, even as we've had those vacant positions. When it comes to the compliance officer, that work has been handled as part of the other duties of our office, which has impacted our ability to do other things. For Tanea, the outreach interpreter manager, that has impacted some of those responsibilities that she's had.
And I apologize, I didn't see that they reverted the money back to, so that kind of self-answers my question. Senator Zucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. In terms of the interpreter licensor regulations, what is the current status of the regulations? And I understand they've been delayed, and that's why we're asking for a report. How is it communicated with the stakeholders, and what's the timeline now? And then what, if any, impact have the delays had to the hiring and maintaining of qualified interpreters for the deaf and blind and hard of hearing community? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm just conferring with my staff. Tanea, maybe you should answer this one. Yes, this is Tanea Brown. With the amendment, we do have a goal of being able to publish the regulations by December 31st of this year. So that is part of the documented outline.
And that will go into effect July 1st of 2027 is our goal.
And that is with the current amendment. I believe the hearing for that is February 26th. And as Director DeBerry, I do want to say we do appreciate that there is still the strong push for sign language interpreters, and we want to see that. There has been an impact to the community. The community has been really vociferous in demanding the licensed and qualified interpreters. We want to have the best services available out there and the best interpreters available out there to meet the needs of the community, which means qualified and certified and licensed practitioners within the state, so that we can see this. And we will see a number of benefits from the community when this comes into effect. And then related to the licensure and the interpreter licensure, this is what allows for those benefits to be seen.
Thank you. And how have you communicated that with the community and stakeholders?
Yes, thank you for re-asking the question. So we have been doing that through our website, through various emails that we have sent out. We have a newsletter, and we've also utilized social media platforms to make sure that the community is aware. And this is Tanea Brown. We also have had various town hall meetings in which we have engaged with communities to hear their questions, concerns, and then also have done that with our under the auspices of our ODHH. And we also have developed a tracker, which they will contact us and help us to understand what issues are out there. So if there's any questions that we have seen, we utilize that to stay abreast of them. We make sure that we are visible, utilizing the language of the community, American Sign Language, and we are making sure that we are starting brief videos to keep the community abreast of developments within the state as well. We have made 53 videos up to this point, informing the community of various actions within the state.
Thank you. My understanding is that since 2023, there's been a 92% decrease in social media engagement from the deaf and hard of hearing community. Is that correct?
This is to Brown. 92% decrease. Do you mind clarifying where you get the statistics from, as well as what you mean by the decrease?
My understanding is that those engaging with you on social media platforms has decreased over the years instead of increased. I mean, I could be wrong. That's just what I've been hearing.
So I actually find that very interesting, because we've been working very diligently to expand our available videos of what's going on. We've had weekly social media posts and videos, and we've also pulled in different deaf organizations within the state, and making sure that we also provide captions and comments on that. And then I will say that we have seen the Facebook Reels has seen an increase of reports. And then Diamond?
Hi, I'd just like to add Diamond Halliburton for the record, and I'll be using my voice. That number could also be coming from our change in our social media accounts. With the changeover, we had to make new accounts, and with that, we had to gain our followers back. So I do believe that starting from scratch could have an effect on that number.
That's a very good point. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, Madam Director, just getting clarity in reference to the full positions. I assume it's June, but I do want to give you room, and if you can communicate that back with Mr. Brown, that would be helpful from that standpoint. The timeline around the Sign Language Interpreters Act, like, this is important to us, and it's important to a number of our colleagues, but I do want to lift up Senator King, who sits right next to me when I'm in the committee room, and she's going to be asking me questions about this. So please help us with that so that we can get that back to her. And just want to say thank you for your leadership, and Mr. Brown, thank you for just letting us be able to see the agency a lot more clear, some of the challenges and some of the strengths. Colleagues, at this time, we're going to have our last agency report out, and this is going to come from the Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board, and that's going to be Mr. David Propert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Beginning on page 1, the budget for the Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board, or PTAB, grows by 8.2%, or approximately $100,000, to $1.4 million in the allowance compared to the working appropriation. Exhibit 1 on page 2 breaks down total spending, and personnel costs account for the overwhelming majority. Moving to page 3, Exhibit 2 shows the year-over-year changes in the allowance. There are increases of about $126,000 for salaries and fringe benefits, along with around $42,000 for employee and retiree health insurance costs, which are partially offset by a decrease of $75,000 due to the elimination of 2 contractual positions. Continuing to page 4, as of December 31st, 2025, PTAB had no vacant positions. Exhibit 3 on page 5 shows the number of appeals received, appeals heard or cleared, pending appeals at the end of the year, and the rate of appeals heard or cleared. The first 3 years shown had an average of 10,655 appeals received, and the last 3 years shown had an average of 8,252, which is a decrease of 22.6%. Despite the rate of appeals heard or cleared, which is the number of appeals heard or cleared divided by the number of appeals received, reaching 120% in calendar 2024, the number of cases in the backlog only decreased by 2 from calendar 2023 to 2024. This shows that there are a substantial amount of appeals that had a hearing but have yet to be cleared. Moving to Exhibit 4 on page 6, PTAB has a goal to have less than 10% of decisions being appealed to the Maryland Tax Court, and the agency has met this goal in 5 out of the 9 years shown, with a notable improvement since calendar 2017. While PTAB does not directly control whether a case is appealed to the Maryland Tax Court, local PTABs have a large role in whether appeals get reversed by the tax court, as a reversal may indicate an oversight in fairness or accuracy. Calendar 2016 and 2017 experienced high reversal rates, but the years since have had much lower rates comparatively, with 3 out of the last 5 years being 5%. Continuing down page 6, language in the fiscal 2026 budget bill restricted $100,000 in general funds pending a report on the status of vacancies in Baltimore City's local PTAB and its backlog of cases as of July 1st, 2025. The agency reported that there were 121 cases in the backlog, which was half the number of cases compared to the previous year. The agency reported that the backlog is due to a variety of factors, including the number of cases it receives from the State Department of Assessments and Taxation and availability of appellants. As of July 1st, 2025, there were 2 vacancies on Baltimore City's 6-member PTAB, and the agency has since reported that there is only 1 vacancy as of November 24th, 2025. On January 8th, 2026, the restricted funds were released. Exhibit 5 on page 7 lists the backlog of cases and vacancies by local jurisdiction as of December 1st, 2025. The agency reported that the number of cases increases rapidly once notices of new assessments are mailed to property owners, and a wave of notices was mailed in July and August of 2025. Prince George's County and Baltimore City accounted for 71% of outstanding cases as of December 1st, 2025. PTAB should comment on how it assists local PTABs with filling vacancies and clearing the backlog of cases. The Department of Legislative Services recommends adopting committee narrative requesting a report on vacancies and backlog cases. And with that, I conclude my portion and can take any questions.
Seeing no questions at this time, if we can bring up the administrator, Ms. Katrina Wiggins. Ms. Wiggins, I want to start by saying it's great to see you in person.
Yes, same here. It's good to see the other committee members that I have met previously. Wait a minute, my staff's coming with me. Senator McCray, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity and the rest of the committee. And I'd like to express my thanks to David Proper for the assistance he's given. I have to my right, Deshaun McBride, an operations coordinator, and Kiana King, the same title. I appreciate the opportunity to have a testimony here regarding the legislative report. First of all, we agree with the findings, and we have been fully committed to filling vacancies, and also let me find my. PTAB agrees with the observation that the clearance rate did not move from 2023 to 2024, and we will continue to work at full capacity despite the vacancies because only 2 board members are required to have a hearing. So, and secondly, we will be providing a report on August the 1st of all the vacancies and how we're standing. But I would like to say to this committee that we're operating at full capacity in terms of there are only so many days and only so many hours in a day, and we're kind of restricted by how many cases you can hear. And when they sent out the assessments, all the assessments went up this year, and we have an increased amount of appeals, particularly in Prince George's County and Baltimore City, who are both represent more than half of the cases that are appealed at this point. And their backlog is synonymous with that amount. So I will address any questions you might have at this point.
Yep. First, it's just good to see you. A lot of times when I read this agency report, I understand the challenges that we have in my jurisdiction. I'm from Baltimore City. And just, hold them accountable, and I hold them accountable with love, because I think that our friends should do that to make sure that everybody else aren't there. So I appreciate you speaking to the 2 vacancies that existed. I appreciate that you have given us notice that one of them has been filled, and just some level of idea, if you can connect back with myself or the analysts, just letting us know, like, when does Baltimore City intend to fill that last position? That would be helpful for me.
Will do.
Yes, ma'am. Senator Augustine.
Yeah, thank you so much for the report. It's a similar question, obviously, for Prince George's, which I represent, but I also, just from an understanding standpoint, these vacancies, you all are the state portion. These are the local portion, these vacancies here?
Yes.
And so they are under, we're listing them here as vacancies, but you don't hire these folks. Is it the
No,
local? Just from my
they are,
understanding.
the appointments office is responsible, and they work with the counties.
Okay, so they do have to go through the appointments office?
Yes,
Oh, okay, okay, that's important information.
Yes, it
Okay, so it
is.
has to go through the appointments office, and then it goes to the county.
yes.
Okay, and who determines how many per county?
That's by statute.
Okay.
There are 5, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel, Prince George's County, and Montgomery County. They all get 4 and
4.
2 alternates.
Okay, and
Everybody else gets 2 and 2 alternates, or 3 and 1 alternate. I have to think about it, but they don't have more than 4.
Okay, and then, like you said here, for the backlog is also an indication of the volume
Yes.
on an annual basis
Yes.
of appeals.
Yes,
Is that accurate?
that is accurate.
Okay,
I would like to add, too, that a lot of times when they come to these hearings, it's about affordability. It isn't always, they'll say, I can't afford it. And I was listening to SSTAT. They have lots of programs. We have people that will appeal based on affordability, and then here they are at a hearing, and we're giving them information on applying for some of the programs that exist.
oh, no, I'm very well aware. I mean, a lot of my folks, we get this every single year as soon as the assessments come out.
Yes, and
We got fixed income, folks on fixed income, and they're just like, I got no money, I can't
Exactly.
pay for this. So
And I was going to say, the first thing comes to mind is Baltimore City. Those assessments went out. They usually get $200 a month. After the assessment hits, they got $990.
Right.
That's 5 times as much as they get on a monthly basis.
Okay. And then the other metric, and you could just help me, or maybe the board, how frequently does the board make an adjustment for the home, for the property owner? Do you know?
Yeah, we do get stats on that. Each they report how many are affirmed, meaning the SSTAT, and then they have the reduced ones. And then some get dismissed because people don't show up or hearing. Yes, I do get that breakdown.
Okay. I know it may not be inside of this, but I just would, for a sense of, a lot of times, this is a very, people talk about this a lot in Prince George's County.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I would love to just learn more, okay?
Of course.
Thank you.
I am thinking about this, like, I hear you very loudly with the 2 board members can be a quorum. No, it is a quorum. 2 is a quorum. So, like, have we thought about, like, what other jurisdictions, and I mean other jurisdictions by states, like how they're, from an efficiency standpoint, like, I don't know if they're doing remote hearings. How many days do we operate? Like, are we operating 5 days out of the week?
I can tell you that the 5, we call them the big 5, that I just, they meet up to 4 days a week. They're putting in 4 days a week. This is not budgeted as a full-time job, so they're meeting 4 days a week, 6 hours. And in 6 hours, they kind of plan 12 hearings. That gives everybody half an hour. Some hearings last more than 30 minutes. So yeah, so that's how they're scheduled. That's why I was.
Are these in person or are they
Those
virtual?
are in person. They have the opportunity to put them in writing. So after a board meets, they'll, and they've had the personal hearings, then they sit amongst themselves and read the written ones. Very few come in writing, but they do show up.
Do other states have a similar composition like what we have? Or who's like adjacent jurisdictions that
Well,
may
you
have?
won't believe, I did contact DC, and I was going, Maryland, DC, Virginia. I have not been able to contact with the Virginia person, but I had a long conversation with the DC person, and they're doing things electronically, and that's something.
When you say electronic, you mean virtual?
No, yeah, virtual and electronic. Everything that's being done for us is manual.
Okay, with the paper, they said that, yeah.
Yes, and that's very consuming. All of those appeals are touched 3 times. They're acknowledged, then they're scheduled, and then they get information about what the results are. When you talk about 990 in a month.
Have we started to look in that direction of the electronic?
Yes.
Last question, so like, is somebody coming before exec noms, because Baltimore City's operating at 75% capacity right now with 1 vacancy. Is somebody coming this session for appointment?
We're waiting until after the sessions are over. They're in the middle of all their appointments right now. No one's coming before you during this session.
This legislative session?
Yes, this legislative session.
Okay, all right, yes.
Same question for Prince George's.
They were full, and that was the other thing. These reports are as of that moment.
Oh, you said Prince George's is full right
County
now?
was full, and then they had 2 because of the pace and the frequency of these meetings. They were like, I'm out, in terms of they had jobs. This isn't a full-time job, and I think it was overwhelming in terms of how much demand. So, yeah. So 1 minute we have a full board, and then you have resignations, retirees, and then recently we had a death, so it happens.
And so what you're saying though right now is that these vacancies are here for Prince George's, and they're right under the current sort of situation, they're slated to stay because of what's happening in basically, right?
Yes.
Now, I want to ask another quick question of you too, though. It's like, based on the numbers that you have here, and I didn't understand it until you said you gave the number of cases that you can do per hour, and that number wasn't big enough. Like,
no,
so
it's not sustainable at this rate.
Yeah. So what is the plan, or do you have a recommendation or a plan that would allow for us to get out of this situation?
I want to put something in writing that might mean we'd have a dual meeting.
I was thinking, okay, a dual meeting or something?
Yes, have concurrent sessions going.
Okay, I just would really be grateful for, y'all are at full capacity at the state side. We had some barriers at the local and the county side, but we have this backlog that, given current operations, cannot be relieved. Like, that's just fact. So we need a way to figure out how it can be relieved, even if we fill these vacancies based on what you just shared with me.
Exactly. So we'd have to have double meetings.
Okay. I would appreciate receiving that and what that might look like. That would be great.
It's going to cost us, though.
I understand that. That's what I'm saying. We got to know what it is in order to see what it is. Thank you.
Madam Administrator, it has been a true joy to be able to be in your company, and just recognizing, like I said, some of the strengths and weaknesses of the agency, but just what you're doing and thinking from that standpoint. I also appreciate I was about to say young women, but the women that are also there. We just thank you for the work that you do on behalf of our state. And Mr. Proper, just thank you for the thorough analysis, helping us to be able to understand what's going on more with the agency. Colleagues, seeing that this is the last budget hearing, this meeting of Health and Human Services is adjourned. You all have a